In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this fondant brick wall. Hi, it's Karolyn. I'm a professional cake decorator, and on this channel, I share my tips and tricks and ways that I bake and decorate cakes to help you along your journey. So if you'd like to join me, hit subscribe and the bell so you can get notified whenever I release a new video. I am making one of my most famous designs, a hip hop cake this week, and I've done the brick wall a little differently. I actually filmed a video of my other technique for a brick wall, and I will link that in the description below, and this is going to be a different one, and I wanted to show you how I do that. And just a reminder that my birthday cake design blueprint is linked in the description below. So let's get into the video. First, I want to dye the fondant, so I want to make a brick red color. I have marshmallow fondant here. I just ripped a chunk off and I popped it in the microwave for about 15 seconds to make it warm and pliable. And I just wrap the rest up in a plastic wrap and put it in an airtight container. Now in here I have cornstarch, not powdered sugar. Powdered sugar is going to get everything sticky, and I have some Crisco. And also what we're going to do is add a little bit of Tylose powder. I know I sound like a broken record, but I have to say this in every video because not everybody watches all of my videos. Tylose powder is going to help the fondant dry hard like gum paste, so it's going to be a lot easier to work with. This fondant right now, even though I popped it in the microwave, it's warm, but it's just too soft. It's not going to hold its shape. Just trust me. So I actually use Wilton CMC or Tylose powder, and I add it to this container because this container is a lot easier to work with. But I will link it below. So I'm going to get some Crisco in my hands and on the counter and just start to knead this together. And now I just want to add some Tylose powder. So I'm sprinkling on, I don't know, about a half teaspoon, and just knead that all together. Now to get a brick red is not super red. It's a little bit brownish. So I have some red coloring and some brown coloring here. And I will link the coloring below, something similar. I don't think he makes this anymore. So I'm going to add a little bit of red. Well, there's a nice little squirt of red, if you will, and like a couple drops of the brown. So you see it was probably like a 6-to-1 ratio. A lot of red, a little bit of brown, and knead that together. So this looks a little pinkish, so I want to add a little bit more. So I'm going to do about the same amount again, so like a 6-to-1 ratio of red and just a couple drops of the brown, and see what color I get now. Much better. That looks like a brick red color. So what I'm going to do, this is still too soft to work with. I am going to set this aside, just put down some cornstarch on the countertop so it doesn't stick, and just let it sit for about 15 to 20 minutes so the Tylose powder can start working, and then I'll start to work with the fondant. All right, while the fondant is setting up, I just got my cake out of the refrigerator. The icing is hard and it's solid, and I'm not going to mess it up. What I want to do is first find the front of my cake. I already know that this is the front, but I'll tell you, I like to find the front to look the most symmetrical looking back, right? It's the smoothest, it looks the nicest, actually. And then I like to mark, this is going to be, there's going to be another tier on top of here, so I'm just going to draw a little arrow showing the front of the cake so I'm not going to get confused. If you look at other parts of the cake, like this part's not perfect here, it's not smooth. I mean, it's all going to get covered by decorations or whatnot, but I just find this to be the best part. That's enough talking about where to find the front of the cake. So it's 5 inches high. I'm going to do 1-inch high bricks, probably by 2 inches. Oh, we'll see. All right, now this fondant is so much better. You give it time, and look, it's smooth, it's easy to work with, it's not stretching, it's holding its shape. Seriously, you just have to have patience when you're working with Tylose. So I'm just going to knead this together, and I want to roll it out. Now I don't want it to be super thin. I want it to be like a medium thickness. I'll show you after I roll it out. I don't want it too thick, not too thin. So I'm going to roll it into a log first. Get some cornstarch down on the countertop and then roll it out. right, and this is how thick I rolled it out. So if you could see, it's not too thick, not too thin, right? It's like a little, it's a happy medium, if you will. So now I want to cut out the ribbons. So I have this ribbon cutter, and what you do, you can just unscrew the end, and then there's these little pieces in here. The end pieces, one has a nubbin, like Chandler, it's my nubbin. And you know, there's short pieces, long pieces. You just decide how big you want it to be, and just put the pieces together. And then I'm going to use my ruler, and that is 1 inch. So it's going to depend on how big you want your bricks to be. So I'm going to cut a bunch of long strips, and then I'm going to cut the single bricks out. And whenever I cut anything out of fondant, I like to smooth the cuts, especially with this, since fondant starts to stick to this. The cuts just get a little jagged. So I'm just going to take my fingers on either side and just run it down the entire length. Now, because the fondant tends to stick to these little discs, I'm just taking a wet paper towel and getting rid of the fondant so I can get sharper cuts. After you wet it, take a dry spot on the paper towel and dry it off. That way this is not going to stick to the fondant. It's just better when it's clean. Now I want to cut the individual bricks, so this is going to have to be a little wider. I'm thinking about 2 inches. So really, I mean, you just have to figure out what thickness you want this to be. So I'll put the nubbins in, have the 2 long pieces, 1 short piece. And that's a nice size for the brick. So it's really just going to be your personal preference. I want to cut even. You have to make sure you get down and you're cutting these straight. If you do it on an angle, it's not going to be right, right? I mean, I think that's obvious, but I would think, I just want to point it out. So cutting straight up. Now, I swear to God, I spend most of my time in cake decorating smoothing out cuts. So what I want to do is just take my fingers, smooth out the edges. If you take the time to do this, everything is going to look so much neater. And then I have a cake box lid. I cut the lids off of cake boxes, and I always save them so I can put decorations on them like this. So I'm going to put each one on the cake box after I cut it. And now I'm going to do that and cut out a ton of these bricks. So same thing. All right, I just got this out of the refrigerator. What I want to do is release this from the tape that's underneath it. I will link my video on how I fill cakes so you can see how I tape the cake board to the cake circle. But I just want to release this so I can easily lift it after all the bricks are put on the cake. So if you can see, here's a piece of tape, and I just want to get rid of that. All right, I just scraped the extra icing off the cake board, and I'm going to put this back on. Now, need to remember that nothing is sticking this cake to the cake circle anymore. So you have to be careful when I'm handling it. That way it's not going to fall off. Now I have all my little bricks. I have some piping gel and a paintbrush. So I'm going to start at the bottom row. Get a little bit of piping gel on the back. I prefer to use piping gel because piping gel will stick, but it is forgiving to start with. So this time I'm going to start at the very front and then build my way to the back because I want the front to look a certain way. So now when I put the next one down, I'm going all the way down to the board. However, I'm going to leave a little space in between. So if you see bricks, they look like, I mean, what's it called? Mortar, brick and mortar? Is it mortar that's in between? I don't know. I'm probably saying the wrong thing. But the stuff that's in between the bricks, the concrete stuff. So just give it a little bit of space, not too much. You want to just make it even. And I'm going to go the whole way around. So I have this arrow pointing to the front, so I know when I get to the back of the cake, it might not match, and that's okay. And now I'm starting on the other side and going to the back. Ugh, And as I get to the back, there's just a teeny little spot opening there, which stinks, but whatever. So we'll fix that at the end. So now I'm going back to the front of the cake and I'm gonna do the next row. Now with bricks, they are staggered. So I wanna go halfway in between and I wanna try to keep the spacing the same. So the same space that's here is the same space that's gonna be here. And I just want to build this up to the top so I can see how this is going to come together. So now this row is going to be on top of this row. So you're still going halfway in between and staggering. So this is still the front of the cake. All right, now I have it built all the way to the top. Now I want to space it out and just make sure that everything is even. So I am eye level with this cake right now. Just trying to look at the spacing. It's easier to do it from eye level than to do it from standing up high. All right, and this spacing looks pretty good. So now I'm just gonna put on the rest of the blocks, or the bricks going the whole way around the cake. And I don't know if I mentioned, so after I made these bricks and set them aside, they were only sitting out for probably 20 minutes before I'm putting them on the cake, because I don't want them to sit out too long, because then they're going to start to dry flat and they may crack as I put them on the cake. So I want to get them on the cake as soon as possible so they can dry with the correct shape to it. All right, now I am at the back of the cake where things are not going to match up perfectly. So let's see, I just have to fill in these spaces here. So I'm going to take one, put it against the cake and see where I have to cut it. I'm going to make a little line or a little mark with the paintbrush and then just cut this piece off. Put it back, make sure there's enough space in between, perfect. And just get it on the cake. So each of these are a different size. So you're just gonna have to do the same thing. Give it a little space, put it down, mark where you have to cut it so there's a little space in between. All right, so you really can't, it's difficult to tell if you're just glancing at it that there's a couple different uneven pieces here. But there's the brick pattern. So there's cornstarch all over these, but I don't want to do anything with it yet. I want to put this back in the refrigerator and let the piping gel really adhere to the cake so these pieces won't move. And then I'll continue. I'm going to handle this really carefully so the cake doesn't fall off the cake circle. All right, this was in the refrigerator for like 10 to 15 minutes. And before I airbrush it, I just want to wipe off any excess cornstarch that's on the bricks. Just using a dry paintbrush. And now I just want to add some depth with airbrushing. Now, my airbrush, it's an investment. However, it just makes life so much easier. If you're decorating cakes a lot and you would use it a lot, I would definitely recommend using an airbrush. If not, what you could do is get a little bit of pebble dust. This is black pebble dust, and I have it on a brush here. Tap it on the lid, and then I really want to tap the excess off. And what you could do is just start to dust around the edges of the brick and into the white part, just giving it a little more visual interest. This technique will take a while for you to do. It's a way that you can get a little bit of depth and interest into your pieces by using the dust. However, it's going to take forever. But I just wanted to show you that that is an option of something that you can do. Or we can airbrush. So I love this. I got this years ago, and I absolutely love it. I will find it and link it below. So you have your little airbrush cup here, and what you do is pull back the trigger to increase the spray. If you have this dial turned all the way up, it's going to be a really intense spray. All the way down is going to be really light. So I try to find somewhere in the middle, and that's your on and off switch. I'm going to use black. You can also use brown if you want to. And I like to have an extra paper towel. Just in case I need to take a break, I can hold this here so it's not spraying all over the place. You'll see what I mean. So I have some black airbrush color, and I'm just going to fill the cup here. Not all the way, just put a lot in the cup. All right. Now I find that this has a little bit of a spray if I don't pull this back. So I just want to find my good spray consistency, if you will. So I'm going to have this dial not turned all the way up. So I'm going to turn it back just a little bit and turn this on. Before I turn it on, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go around the brick. Now, I'm not spraying black all in the white part. What I'm trying to do is spray black around the edges of the brick. And it's going to go into the white, and that's okay. But this is just going to give it a little more visual interest. So I'm going to go up, down, and around, and up, and zigzag, and up, down. You know, if I need to take a break, I'm just going to hold the paper towel here and then go back to what I'm doing. It might get a little loud, so I wanted to explain it beforehand. So I could do a little tester here. All right. So I can pull this back slightly. I'm going to go all the way around the bottom. So I'm turning the turntable with my bottom hand. And I'm just going back and forth with the brush. With the gun. Okay, now go up, over, and down, up, over, down, right? Now coming up to the right. So I'm just kind of going around the border of the bricks, trying to give it a little more interest. So I am pulling this, I'm pulling this trigger back very slightly, like hardly at all. If you pull it back all the way, it's just gonna spray too much. So it's very, very slight that I'm pulling this back. All right, when it comes to the top, I'm gonna hold this straight down this way and spray around the top edge. Trying not to get too much airbrush coloring on the white icing at the top. It's gonna happen, that's okay, it's not a big deal. And then just doing the bottom 3 sides on the top bricks. So the closer you hold the gun, the more precise the air is going to go. The more you hold it away, it's going to spread out a little more. So now that it's basically all of the bricks are airbrushed, now I just want to go around and just refine and just add a little more color anywhere that I feel like it should go. Now to clean this off, I'm going to turn the dial all the way up, turn this on, pull the trigger all the way back to empty the cup, and then run very hot water through the whole thing. And look at that, little brick wall decoration on your cake. I'll show you real quick how I'm going to stack this in case you are doing what I'm doing and this is going to be the middle tier of a cake. All right, real quick, just to show you, in case you're putting that as a different tier other than the bottom tier of your cake. I am going to stack this real quick. I have a video where I go into full detail on how I stack cakes, but just showing you real quick. I have this sewing ruler here. I'm going to find the highest spot in the cake, press it down, and take this little nubbin at the top and push it down to the... Now I know how long I want to cut my straws. I have bubble tea straws here. And I'm going to mark with a marker just after where the ruler ends, and I'm going to cut the marker and that part off. This is a 7-inch cake going on top of a 9-inch cake, so I'm going to do 8 straws in the bottom tier. So 8 straws will support a 7-inch cake. And now I'm just going to cut right underneath where that marker was. So I'm cutting off the marker spot, and do that for all of the straws. I actually want to mark the front of my board because I'm going to cover this arrow. So I'm going to put a little marker down here where the front of the cake is so I know. Put all 8 straws. So I'm going to do one in the front, one in the back. And I'm doing it about, I'm doing it in a couple inches. That way it's going to be supported by the cake board on the smaller cake. And again, I will link my video on how I stack cakes, so it goes into further detail. Now the airbrush coloring has dried. And this is why I removed it from that tape on the bottom, so I can easily just put my hand on one side, remove the circle, and place this on top. All right, so if I still had the tape underneath, it would have been a pain in the butt to get the cake off. And now I just want to make sure that I have it center. So just kind of turning it around, making sure that there's an even border on the top the whole way around. And I have the front part of this facing the front part of the cake. And I'll do the same thing for the top tier. Top tier is 5 inches, so I'm going to put 6 circles in it. So I sharpen this dowel. This is a 5/16 dowel that I get at Lowe's. I can find them and link them below. So I sharpen this with a pencil sharpener that is only used for dowels, never has been used for anything else. It's sharp, so I'm going to put this down to the bottom of the board, get my snips, start a little bit down from the top, and then come straight out and cut. I like to rinse both ends under water, just so there's no like extra pieces of wood. Put it straight down in the middle. Hammer it all the way down into the cake board. And there's a little hole that's created from from putting the dowel through. So I just get a little more buttercream and wipe it on there to cover the hole. I'm putting something on top here so it doesn't have to be perfect. And now this will go back into the refrigerator until I am ready to decorate it. So here you go. Here's the final design with everything decorated on it. I gotta put it down. My arms are shaking. Why do I feel like I always have to hold the cake in my outro? I don't know. However, I have videos. This is one of my most popular designs, and I have videos on how I make the Kangol hat, how I make the graffiti name, how I make the gold chain, and now how I make the brick wall. And these other decorations are all made using my trace, cut, and smooth technique in my other 2D fondant videos. So you can see that the airbrush really does make that whole process a lot faster. If you have to dust the whole thing, like if I had to use that pedal dust around the whole thing, that would have taken forever. And I don't know, an airbrush is worth the investment. It is a little pricey. However, I use it all the time. I feel like once you have it, you're going to use it. I will link it in the description below for you as well. So I can't think of anything else to say. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them below. And you can follow me on my socials, and I have my website. Everything will be linked in the description below as well. And I just want to say, I have a new tagline at the end of my videos, and I wanted to explain it real quick. I say it's cake, have fun, because there's my Philly accent. When I was working, I used to work for Remax selling houses, and that job, I'm just not a realtor. Like it was okay, but that job just annoyed me, and I would get so frustrated when things didn't work out right and everything. And that's one of the reasons I started making cakes, just because I was able to have fun. You're able to be creative. And sometimes when you're making cakes, it can get a little frustrating, but then just remind yourself that it's cake. And in the end, just have some fun. So that's why I say that. So with that said, if you want to stick around, you can watch these 2 videos next and hit the subscribe button and the bell if you haven't already. Please like this video if you liked it. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. And remember, it's cake. Have fun. I will see you on the next one. Bye.